Welcome to the Tewanee Joseph Show. I'm here with Sam Seward, coach, athlete, actor, weaver, and knowledge keeper. Sam, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You know, you've done many things over your career and in your life, and we met when I was a young man growing up in the community here in the Squamish Nation. One of the things that really struck me in terms of your life and what you've done was really around sports and, really around lacrosse, the great North Shore Indians of the past and of today as well. But particularly growing up in the 70s and 80s, for me, going to the North Shore Indians game was just really the highlight of it. When you talk about Super Bowl or Stanley Cup or any of those things, it was the North Shore Indians. It was the President's Cup that was the most important. But maybe, how did you get into the sport of lacrosse and some of the things that have happened over your career as you started to move forward in your career and in life? And I know you're coaching the North Shore Indians today as head coach, but how did you get into the sport of lacrosse?
Yeah, my mom and dad were coaches we used to have our own North Shore Indians minor lacrosse association. So I played and all my friends played. We started going to school and started meeting people, friends and relatives. And there used to be a lacrosse box down in Mosquito Creek Marina, and we played all our home games there, all through minors. And then when we got up to midgets, I think it was about 1971, my mom passed away, and one of the dads passed away. And I guess there was nobody to step in and help out. So it's the way I remember it. Could have been some other way, but most of our players went to North Van Rec Center. They were in North Shore, and my dad was a longshoreman back then. And lacrosse is a small world, and Dad brought us to lacrosse box across from the P&E on the other side of Hastings Street. And we played with a team called the Hastings Bluebirds. It was a good team, good experience, and after I finished there, I turned 17. I played signed Junior B with North Shore Indians and started playing Senior B, Senior C, Junior A with Coquitlam, and made the North Shore Indians. I guess it was an all-star team, traveling team. We went to, it used to be called Thorpe Longboat Lacrosse Tournament. We used to travel around every year and play all native teams from different reserves from back east. So it was a good experience.
It's incredible. I mean, the sport of lacrosse, really the creator's game is really, there's, the on the floor things, but also what's important about the game is about family and playing for the creator, but also life lessons as well. And being able to play First Nation teams from right across the country. It's nice to see where the game is at today, but really the roots go back so far. And I think for you as somebody that grew up in that time, I mean, obviously it was a different time. Wood sticks being used back then was a lot different. The padding was a lot different. But where were some of the places that you traveled to as you were growing up playing the game, not only as minor lacrosse, but as you started to move into senior as well?
First year we went to Ganawagi. I was 17. And when we were there was a heat wave back there. It was like 114 degrees. It was pretty hot. We did good. And the following year, we went to Six Nations. It was a good experience, good lacrosse. Pretty physical, I think. When we play native teams against native teams, it's pretty physical. Like you're saying, we had gloves and 3-piece helmets, no cages. We wore a mouthpiece, and we hardly had any pads. We never wore elbow pads. Well, I didn't. And one bicep pad, no kidney pads, hip pads maybe. And I think I had a back pad swinging. Somehow I hooked it up. But yeah, like you said, it was a different game, different time. We had guys that could fight on our team. We changed the game. I always tell my son I was very lucky, and during my playing time, we always had good teams. And when you have good teams, you have a lot of good players want to come play with us also. So with our North Shore Indians Senior B, I think I have 4 BC championships and 1 President's Cup. We won in 1985. But also in 1980, I played on an all-star team called the Can-Am Warriors. They came out from back east, coached by late Russ Paulus. and they came out, and we had a good team. We beat them on a Friday night, and Can-Am beat us on Saturday. And late right Ross Paulus came in and said, "Sam, come on out here." And yeah, okay. So I went out, and he said, "Would you like to play in a world championship?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." He said, "Okay, go shower up. We'll be in touch." I said, "Awesome, thank you." So from what I remember, we practiced once and we played in the tournament. We came second. We played in the Coliseum, final game. Probably, I think there was about 9,000 fans there. So it was an awesome experience. Made a lot of lifelong friends. I haven't seen some of the guys in 40 years, and I talked to them. It's like I saw them yesterday. So that's one of the good things about sports. You meet a lot of friends, a lot of family. And especially when we travel back east, they treat us well. They'll bring us to their homes and feed us a big feast. The family gets together and feed us. So, yeah.
And I think, yeah, and I think when you talk about the World Championships or Nations 80, there's teams from Australia, United States, and basically a team, senior A team from here, and kind of all-star team that was put together, and then the Can-Am team that came out here and played the North Shore team. I mean, the setup for it was really, that was kind of like the World Box Lacrosse Championships. I mean, there is the World Box Lacrosse Championships, which is part of World Lacrosse happening in Utica, New York this year coming up in September. But as far as I can trace back, that was kind of like the first World Championships in terms of box lacrosse. Am I correct in assuming that?
Yeah, that's what they had on programs. Their first World Box Lacrosse Championship. They called it Nations in 80. And we beat Canada East, was a senior A team, and we beat them to get into the final. So it was some pretty tough games. Everything was different. The rules, I'd say. I watched the clip of the final game, and there's really no rules in face-offs and that. So it was pretty free, and picks were a little different, and slashing, and you don't see the refs call follow through. You take a shot and you hit the defender with your stick. The refs don't call anything like that. So it was a different game, different time. Played with a lot of exceptional lacrosse players, a lot of good lacrosse players.
Yeah, and what was it like, getting ready for that? And in Pacific Coliseum, I mean, obviously the Vancouver Canucks, were playing there, and a lot of big concerts were happening at the Pacific Coliseum. So, moving from an arena, whether it's North Vancouver or around the Lower Mainland or Vancouver Island, into a venue like that. I mean, how was it as you were getting ready for that final game? And obviously, it was a great final. But at the same time, what was it like to get ready for that and playing in the Pacific Coliseum? I mean, that's the first time I think of that there was a final of lacrosse that was played in the Pacific Coliseum. Is that correct?
Yeah. It was exciting, and I always talk about my players, my teammates when I do interviews, and I always remember the guys I get to play with, and some of the guys maybe talk similar to how we used to talk. We're gonna score some goals. We're gonna get scored on, but we might not win every game, but we're gonna go out there and have fun. And I always remember we're in the dressing room, and one of my friends was a funny guy. He'd loosen us up. He'd be teasing everybody, and coaches would just let him go. He's loosening us up, and then the coach would come talk to us. Stepping on the floor, and we're getting ready. We want to get a good sweat on, be ready for the game. And we talk about, as coaches now, a lot of us talk about get into the game right away. For me, to get in the game, I needed to get hit, and I was facing off, so I would get hit right away, and I'm in the game. The nerves are gone. I'm settled down. So I think some of today's players, they don't understand that. We tell them, do what you have to do to get in the game. We have to get a good start in the beginning of the game. So.
Absolutely. And I think, as your career went on and you moved into coaching, I mean, but also, continuing to play the game for many years is so important because you can play the game at any age, really. But also now for coaching, you've coached for a number of years, and particularly in Senior B here, and you've taken teams back to NAIG last year. And I think that experience sounded like it was an incredible experience going back to the NAIG championships. Maybe tell us a little bit about the NAIG games that you went to last year.
Yeah, the NAIG is, I coach U19 boys, and it's an all-star team. We get all the players from across BC come to a tryout camp. And it's tough, I guess, for the athletes. Some, they might not have a good weekend, and it shows. And we're only allowed to bring like 20 players, 18 runners, 2 goalies. But it was a good experience. We had good offense, good defense, good goaltenders all around. And the boys played well, good condition, but once you get playing in lacrosse, there's injuries, and it's mostly our offensive players getting hurt. So that it's hard for us. We still have to score goals, but if our offense is hurt, it's kind of challenging, and you have to try and bring in a defenseman that's good on both ends of the floor, can play offense, can play defense. And I had one guy could face off good. Possession is important. To get possession of the ball right away. And it's lacrosse. We came second. Ontario scored 2 fast goals on us with about 3-4 minutes left in the game. And the athletes are young. They're 19 and under, and they're still 3-4 minutes is still a lot of time, but they wanted to shoot right away, and so yeah.
Yeah, it's quite an experience, and the amount of athletes, from across North America, or mainly Canada, but Indigenous youth in all sports. The North American Indigenous Games is really an incredible event to happen. So to be able to bring a team back there and so close with Ontario at the final, I had a chance to watch the final. It's incredible, but you're sharing your teachings. What we talk a lot about in our community is sharing these teachings with, not only the game, but within life as well. And for you to be able to do that, I think are some of the teachings that you share with some of your athletes in terms of the game of lacrosse, because we talk about lacrosse is not just a sport, it's really about life. But any of the teachings that you share with your players, whether they're U19 or whether they're senior men's, senior B, some of the things that you try to share with those athletes as they start to move forward in their careers?
Yeah, a lot of it just goes back to the fundamentals of the game. Like I was saying, it was a different time. Myself and my friends, we grew up in a lacrosse box. We didn't have the internet. There's, no cell phones, no Wi-Fi. Probably 8 channels on the TV. So, we get up, have breakfast, and go to the lacrosse box and throw the sticks in, and was us young guys right to the masters. And we get to play, and we watch and learn. I think a lot of us are visual learners. We watch and learn. And from spending a lot of time in the lacrosse box, most of us were had good lacrosse stick skills. We had good stick skills. So I see that today, not everyone has good stick skills, and the way the game's played, the offense, defense, we played both ends of the floor. We play offense and go back and play our defense, and so that changes the game. I faced off all the time, and there was no possession back then. We had to run down the corners and face off in the corners to try and get the ball. So it was a different game. I think they took the face-offs out to try and speed up the game, from facing off in the corners. Yeah, it's a different game. We could run and we could play, and we had a good power play. The guys I grew up with, we were on our first line and we were at power play. And since I faced off, if I lost, I'd be on a man short. I'd stay up top on a man short. And I was on a power play when I got into seniors. by one coach said stay out, I could play point, shot, or crease. And sometimes my friends would be calling me to, they wanted me to go off the floor, they wanted to come on the floor, but coach told me I could stay out, so I'd stay out. And yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling our guys, I picked up two of our players our last game, and I was telling them there was like, how old was I? 23, 1979. There were 7 of us in the top 10 in scoring in our senior B league, North Indians. So you couldn't really shut 1 or 2 guys down if, that many of us could score. So, yeah.
For sure. And I think, we talk about sport being culture, but also over your career and over your life, you've done many different things in life, but tell us a little bit about you've been able to get out into the world in a different way. And, traveling in the world and playing lacrosse is one thing. But as you started to kind of branch out into interest-wise, you've been able to go out into the acting world and into the movie world and be able to share your talents, in terms of acting. So how did you get into acting? And maybe you can share a little bit of stories about acting and being on the road and being an actor. And even, as you start to think about, the types of roles that you've been into, but also going forward in your acting career. But how did you get into acting, Sam?
Well, I went to St. Paul's Indian Day School on 5th Street in North Vancouver. And when I was in grade 7, CBC came through with a crew, and we had glass windows on the doors, and they didn't even come in. They're looking at us and they're writing. About a week later, I received a letter. The teacher gave me a letter to bring home, and I was offered a role in a movie called Sister Balonika. It was about residential school. We're in residential school. So that.
Now, what year would this have been around, roughly?
1969. So since I think I was 12, maybe. Yeah, I was 12 because I was 13 when I went to grade 8. So 1968 when I did my first TV movie with a speaking role, principal role. Mm-hmm. And we were filming in Richmond outdoors, and we had 2 tutors with us because we were out of school for about 6 months, I think, and we filmed up in West Van, Panorama Studios. And the movie was on TV, and somehow I have a VHS tape of the movie. So I'd like to have that converted to DVD.
Now we got to let people know VHS for my kids and those that maybe are around their 20s or mid 20s and stuff. VHS was really kind of there was Betamax and there was VHS tapes. So, and then now everything is streamed online, but those are actual tapes, correct? Am I
correct?
Tapes, yeah. That's what everybody's, you'd have Blockbuster and you have different kind of places where you go rent movies and such. But the VHS tapes, that was kind of like 8-track tapes.
Right. That was us do it.
Popular at that time, and so, so the movie came out on VHS, and was that kind of the start of the acting bug for you back then?
Yeah, when I was 12. And my dad used to do theater and TV movies. And Dad would bring me, I'd be in the background in theater, at Centennial Theater. And I took an acting course. And then about 5 years ago, I went on tour with a company called Theater for Living. We toured BC and Alberta for 3 months. It was a play.
And what was that? What was that about? Play?
The play was called Squamish. It was based on Reconciliation Residential School. And I think 4 of us, 4 Indigenous actors and 3 other actors. And there's different stories, and play was about 30 minutes long. Pretty emotional, the stories, and we're dealing with like my character was supposed to be an alcoholic, and I had a grown adult daughter, and she wanted to learn her mom's language. Her mom was from a different nation. And I told my daughter no. So And that's kind of how we started. And the play was forum theater. So once the play ran through 30 minutes, the director would come out and talk to the audience and ask if you can identify with the character on stage, you'll stop. And the audience member would come onto the stage and take, my character's name was Joe. So if somebody said stop, I mean, whose place are you going to take? They say Joe. So I'd sit on the side of the stage in the dark. Audience member would come in, and it changes the scene because we're all different, right? So it would change the scene of what was happening. And I had one man and two ladies come at me for what I was saying, my script for what I was saying. So it was pretty emotional, at times.
Yeah, and it sounds like also full circle from where you started, in your first speaking role in the late 60s to, talking about residential school, or that's what it was about back then, and then talking about reconciliation, and, the things that have happened over time. And I know that, not only live acting for yourself, but also movie acting is also part of it. And I know that you were in a role, in the last couple of years that came out, and I had a chance to see the movie that you were in. The character that it just did not seem like you,
Yeah.
And that's probably part of acting, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it kind of scared me a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah.
But what was the name of that movie? And there were some actors in there. I mean, I know more young and up and coming actor, but actually a boxer, female boxer, and she's just been in some movies, TV series lately. But the name of that movie just escaped me. What was the name of that movie
Catch
again?
the Fair One.
Catch the Fair One.
It's on Prime and YouTube. And Kaylee Reese was the boxer. She was the lead actor.
That's right.
That was a good story. I met with the director. Kaylee was when I worked with her, she's a 3-time world champion boxer. When I met her, and when I flew in, I had to go to Buffalo. Flew to Buffalo, New York. And following morning, I met the director for coffee, and he was telling me he went to watch Kaylee fight in Madison Square Garden. He brought one of the actors, the actor I worked with, went to Madison Square Gardens with the director, and they talked their way into her dressing room. And it took Kaylee and Joseph Balonika 2 years to write the story of Catch the Fair One. And Kaylee did a crash course of acting for 4 or 5 months in New York. Most of the people I worked with were from Brooklyn, New York. Awesome lady, Kaylee. And she went on. She did a series with Jodie Foster.
I think it's Fargo, right?
No.
Fargo?
I can't remember the name. It's a police series, though.
Based up in Alaska.
Somewhere
right?
cold, yeah.
Yeah, I watched it. It was an incredible series.
Yeah, it was.
And to see her acting, and I recognized her at first, and then I was like, hey, I think she was in that movie with Sam, right?
Yeah.
And I think, and tell us a little bit, a bit about the plot, but also about your role within that movie.
I got the role. Somebody tagged me on Facebook. Everybody knows I'm into acting. So I emailed in. They sent me the script, and had to be in. They give you maybe 3 days. And I was home here sitting on the couch, and I'm going, I have to get my audition in. It was Sunday. There was nobody home, so I just held my phone up, and I did the audition. And it was a emotional scene. Kind of like an AA meeting, but it was a grieving session, kind of. And so I did that. And for acting, I use different things that have happened in my life, things that I've lived. And I think I cried when I did the audition. And I sent it in, and the next day they were phoning me. A lady, her name is Molly Asher. She was one of the producers. She would phone me every day, and then from Monday to Friday, and then Friday she asked if I could FaceTime with the director, Joseph. I said, yeah. So Saturday, Joseph phoned me, and I did the same audition, and then he asked me to show him my house. I walked around and he said, put your phone on the shelf and come running around the corner and pretend you're running fast, breathing hard and like you're running for a while. So I did that. And then he sat down and he said, I'm going to offer you a different role, the one you saw me in the movie. Would you like to do it? I said, yes, I'd love to. Thank you. He said, well, somebody will be in touch with you. I said, okay, thank you. And as soon as I hung up with Joseph, they were phoning me. I have my United States social, I don't think they call it social insurance. I have the number in
Social Security.
I have U.S. Social Security number. And Molly was phoning, and I said, the J Treaty, there's no border for us. And she said, well, I'll check with a labor lawyer, and I'll call you back. And she called back, and she said, yeah, you can work. So I was in, and a couple days later, the casting director phoned me, told me who he was. He said, how did you get the role? I said, well, somebody tagged me on Facebook, and I did the audition. He said, oh, wow, thank you. And he told me his name. I can't remember. So that's how I got that role. And I've been doing...
Now, where did you do the shoots? Where did you do the shoots, actually?
We're in Lancaster, about an hour drive outside of Buffalo. So,
I see.
It was tough because I had to be in the lobby at 5 a.m. Eastern time. So I was still on our time, Pacific time. So that was like 2 a.m. And when I flew there, I was still awake at midnight, 1 o'clock, because it's only like 10 o'clock at night, 1 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't sleep probably the first 3 days. And I had a personal assistant. She was nice. And I was in a motorhome. Finally, on the third day, she said, you can sleep for 4 hours. I'll wake you up. I said, oh, thank you. So I went to sleep. And went out, got up, my hair's all over. And I saw the director. He said, better go get your hair braided. I said, yeah, I am. I'm going to go wash up, brush my teeth. I'll be back. Yeah. So
sure. And you never know social media. I mean, there's so many things happening in the world, but to get kind of recommended, or at least people informing you that there's these opportunities out there, because there seems to be more opportunities for Indigenous, First Nations, Native actors these days than there was probably many years ago.
Yeah, there are. And I keep in touch with the director, Joseph Balonika. He's done Narcos, some of the Narcos series on TV. And I keep in touch with Molly Asher. She won an Oscar on the next movie she worked on with Frances McDormand. The movie was called Nomadland. And I just happened to turn the TV on, and I said, hey, there's Molly. They called her name. So I phoned her. Of course, she didn't answer. She's at the Oscars. And congratulated her. And she phoned me back the next day and thanked me. She worked hard. She was first on set and last to leave. So we'd get to set at, say, 6 a.m., and the crafty would be there, the breakfast, the coffee, and that. And then we'd pack up. They'd have supper for us, maybe sandwiches or whatever. Molly was still there. So we worked from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., get back to the hotel at 8, and I'd go down hotel lobby about 8:30, and Molly be there having dinner. So I'd sit down and talk to her. Some days we're filming like 6, and Kaylee would be filming first, because you don't film as the movie goes. The scenes are all over. They're not filmed in order. So sometimes Kaylee would finish at 2 or 3, put her jogging gear on. She'd go for a run, and she'd come back at about 6:45. And we're just wrapping up, getting ready to shuttle back to the hotel. So
incredible.
She said she was training for a fight, and so we're eating. They feed you good on film sets and that. And Kaylee's eating yogurt and fruit and that. I said, don't you eat, Kaylee? She said, oh, yeah, I do, but I have a fight coming up. She's training for her fight.
Training. Yeah. Well, that sport, I mean, it's a tough sport, the sweet science, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And, so what's ahead for you, coming up in your acting career? Anything coming up on the horizon?
Yeah, I'm working on we're writing a play. Work with Presentation House Theatre on 3rd Street, North Vancouver. And after I finished Squamish, we were at the Fire Hall Theatre. We did like 12 shows when we got home. And after the last show, there's a man there, Kim Selledy, runs the presentation house, he was waiting for me. Introduced himself and said he's in North, asked me to stop by at the theater. So I stopped by about a week later. And so I've been working with him for the past 5-6 years. And one day I came home and my granddaughter, Hannah, she's 16 now. She was 13 at the time. And I said, Hannah, can you write a story for me where I'll bring you to meet Kim at the Presentation House Theater? And she said, okay, Papa, what's the story? I said, well, it's my dog's funeral, and everybody comes to my house. I said, there's me, yourself, and Gabe George is working with us, our relative from Tsleil-Waututh. So I said, there's three of us, 3 characters. And Hannah was 13 at the time. She wrote half the play. So we're still working on it. We're writing. We did a workshop. We had about 30 minutes of material. So a workshop, we used our scripts because we're still writing and we haven't memorized it. So we're still going through it. Mm-hmm. And I'll let you know, I think we're going to try and do a show in November, a workshop where we should have hopefully about 60 minutes, 50 minutes of material. Yeah. We work with a lady called Manami. She's an actor, trained in theater, and she's a dramaturg, a writer. So she helps, like Hannah, Gabe, and myself will go sit with her, and we'll sit at the table and we'll talk, come up with ideas. And that's easier for me when we're all sitting together and we think about stuff, what's happening, what are we going to do. Write it down, and Manami types it in her laptop. But right now, Manami's working on 2 plays at Niagara-on-the-Lake in Ontario. And it's called the Shaw Festival. Mm-hmm. So she's an actor, and she just had a few spots on a TV series called Shogun. Manami's Japanese, so it was nice to see her on TV also. But she helps us with the acting and the writing. So yeah, that's what we're working on. And I've been doing auditions for TV movies and voiceovers, and it's a very competitive business. So, but I like it. It's different kind of work. So.
Absolutely, it's incredible to see, how we've come kind of full circle and kind of the start of your career and what you've continued on, but also some of the things coming on the horizon. Definitely keep us informed of future projects on the go and some of the new roles I'm sure you're going to land down the road as well. Yeah. So it's great to see that there's opportunities out there. And, the other part of your life, Sam, was really around culture, but around weaving as well. And, I've had a chance to see some of your works that you prepare for others, but also, part of culture and keeping culture alive and knowledge keeping, being able to pass that on. And the weaving has become I think, an integral part of your life. And maybe you can share a little bit about what you've done or how you got started, but what you're doing in keeping the weaving alive within the community as well.
Yeah, I started weaving, I think, in 2015. I had a hip replacement, and I'm a red seal carpenter by trade. So I built, contracted and built homes for about 40 years. Did renovations, and so I couldn't work. And I went to a weaving class, and first class you learn how to make a headband. And then I was invited to another class, the Tewanee, and then we make a bag. And then I made a robe for my son, a blanket. And I still weave every day, and I teach weaving. I've had a couple of grants from First Peoples Cultural Council, and I went to Snuneymexw and taught, I think it was 5 relatives. They're all weavers, but we weave different than they do, I guess. So I taught them how I weave. And I get calls. I go to schools, elementary, high school, teach weaving, Burnaby Museum in Burnaby, go out and teach. Vancouver Art Gallery, I've been teaching. With that, I share some stories, or I'm learning my language. that's another part of my culture that goes with the weaving I'm learning. And my mentor would teach me. I'd ask him how to say something when I'm finishing a weaving or while I'm weaving. I talk our Squamish language. And so I actually used that in one of my editions I just did. Was playing an elder. Probably it was down the States before, about 10 years before the Civil War, the character. And they were talking their language. So I had a video of a weaving. I was talking Squamish, so I sent it to my agent, and she liked it. She sent it in with my edition, but I haven't heard anything back. So.
Right. And it's great to, as far as culture goes within our communities, the language and the weaving, the songs, are so important in what we do. And, it's something in terms of your life that I could see in terms of, where life takes you sometimes that you just never know, but also one opportunity, leads to another opportunity, something that's different, but you're always grounded in where you come from. And we always say, from our elders too, it's knowing who you are and where you come from, before you know where you're going to go. And I think that's part of your life that you've really incorporated into every part of your family and your children and grandchildren and others. And it's, I think a time that where people can learn from those things is being able to see leading by example and, keeping those things alive in our communities that are so important, but also getting out into the world. And I think that's the other thing, getting out to the acting world, sports, takes you certain places, but also the acting world takes you to other places, meeting people from different cultures. And really that's reconciliation. It's really about doing all of these things together, because it feels like for so long, as First Nations people, we're always on the outside looking in, at different opportunities, or never even given an opportunity to be able to, kind of realize or even compete for. So it's just been part of your life. So any other things that are kind of happening for you in terms of culture, sport, life coming up down the road?
Yeah, like you're talking about sharing. When I do land acknowledgements, welcome to territory in our Squamish language. But recently I went to Germany. I was asked to go to Germany, and I went into high schools, and they asked which age group I'd like to work with. I said 16, 17-year-olds. So I went in. The theater brought me over, and they worked with a theater in Germany. Rudabel was a small town, and I went over, and I went into high schools. I did talked about acting. I brought a small loom. I did wool weaving. They bought two lacrosse sticks. I did lacrosse, and I brought a gaff hook, and I talked about fishing, and I showed them. And I did that for 2 weeks. My wife came with me. They put us in a Airbnb, about a 15-minute walk from the theater. And it's different world over there. Everybody gets around on a tram. There's a tram going each way in the middle of the road. Or we're about a 10-minute walk down a hill to a train. Everybody gets around on a train too. So different food. We didn't care for the food in Germany. So I did my work there. I went to the schools and had fun. My wife came with me twice, and she's better than me with our Squamish language and singing. So that was awesome. My wife got me she was singing the wolf song, our Squamish wolf song. And she was showing me, and we're singing in front of the class. And then she put the drum down, and she told me to keep singing. And she was singing, and she got up and started doing the wolf dance. And she's trying to call the girls. Thought the girls would come, but they didn't. So she called the boys, and the boys were right into it. They're dancing, following my wife, copying her how she was dancing. And then my wife came around, and she said, "Watch, look at which girl they're following." So I was watching. My wife came around again, and I showed her which one, maybe blue. I said, maybe she has a blue shirt on. So my wife went and brought her up, and she started dancing, and all the girls came up and went, "Wow, she got the ball out there." We kept singing, and they were dancing. That was probably one of the best days there in the high schools. So
just experiencing
the experience,
culture.
yeah, we're bringing and sharing. And every day before I'd go teach, I'd do a headband where we're living and where we're staying. And I'd watch these kids, the boys and the girls, who was really accepting, taking in what I was sharing with them. And I could see they're enjoying it. And, end of the class, I'd call that, I'd ask the teacher the boy or girl's name, and I'd call them up and give them the headband. And they loved that. And I knew they were loving our culture and our songs and everything, we're sharing with them. So I'd like to share a headband with. I could see which student really was enjoying themselves.
Absolutely. And as I said, off the top, when we talk about coach, athlete, actor, weaver, knowledge keeper, but also world traveler. And I think that's Sam Seward. That's the Sam that I know. And thank you for joining us today, and wish you the very, very best. I'll see you around the res for sure. Hoichika for being a part of this. And thank you for being a part of the show, Sam.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and letting me share part of my life, part of my journey. So thank you.
Hoichika.
Hoichika, and Hoichika.